Hey everybody, how are you? Hope you're all doing well. You may wonder, who's that guy on the background? Well, that is the little spokesperson for my dear friend Dom's new venture. I know some people collect business cards, collect baseball cards. Dom collects businesses, and and this is Dom's new one, Rip'em Sports, and it's a baseball card store, and it's going to be opening within the next month or two in Larchmont, New York. And Dom is a dear friend of mine, and I'm proud to call him a friend. He's always been there for me. And I just wanted to tell you guys about this wonderful store because, Dom's a big sports fan, and so, screw this, and so am I. So it's going to be a lot of fun to go see the store, and I'll keep you guys posted of when the store opens in Larchmont, New York. And it's going to be great because, I'm sure the staff will be very attentive. Anything Dom does is top shelf. So, congratulations, my friend. So, the New York Mets. This has been quite an off season because David Stearns went from rags to riches. I mean, David Stearns is ready to be run out of town. I think he probably hired a couple of bodyguards to walk around. Hey, Travis. And then all of a sudden, I think Steve Cohen got involved. Now, let me give you a little bit of a background. David Stearns believes that pitchers should not get long term contracts. Unfortunately, we are in a climate now in baseball where pitching is worth a lot of money. But there are a couple of problems. There's going to be a strike most definitely next year because a new collective bargaining agreement has not been reached. The owners want a cap, and the players union for MLB, which is probably the strongest players union in any of the sports, is not going to allow that. They'll allow a floor, which is fine, where you have to spend X amount of money on your team or you'll get fined. So let's just say teams like Pittsburgh may have to go to $150 million because what happens is these owners put the money in their pockets and it's not fair. It's not fair to the fans and it's not fair to baseball in general. It does not make it a lucrative, all around successful venture for everyone. The players make a ton of money nowadays, but the owners are making a fortune. And we'll see what happens. But I would most reluctantly think that they will start on time next year. But we still have this year to worry about, 2026. So David Stearns allowed some of the core guys, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Edwin Diaz, walk away. And Brendan Nemo was traded. And people didn't understand. Now, this core hasn't really won anything. They've gone to a couple of playoffs. They played San Diego a couple of years ago and got smoked. And then went a little too far a couple of years ago. David Stearns, no doubt in my mind, when he took over as POBO, President of Baseball Operations, and General Manager, first of all, he shouldn't be both. It's a lot of work. He should have a general manager under him. But I guess he wanted to search, and when he got fed up, he'd hire somebody. Problem is this with David Stearns. David Stearns comes from a small market, Milwaukee. Generally speaking, they would always trade their stars a year before free agency. He did it with Corbin Burns because they weren't going to pay them. But they would stock up on draft picks and trade young players. When they would trade a veteran, they'd get a couple of good players back. So the team was always fairly young, never quite got over the hump to win it all, but they were always a successful franchise, always there, battling for a wild card or the division. They've been very successful under Stearns. Stearns comes to a Met team with an owner which they actually instituted a Cohen tax because they were so afraid that he'd come and blow everyone out of the water. In fact, the Los Angeles Dodgers entertainment group that owns the Dodgers has about $300 billion at their disposal. They are the richest owner conglomerate. And Steve Cohen is probably worth $20 billion. And they thought he'd go nuts. Now, Cohen tried to buy the Dodgers about 13 or 14 years ago. And he would like to model the Mets, Dodgers East. They haven't gotten there yet. Coaches have left. First base coach, which was responsible for Juan Soto stealing a ton of bases, and the team having the highest ranking in stolen base success in many years. He left for Atlanta. Chavez, the batting coach, was let go. Jeremy Hefner, a well-regarded pitching coach, let go. And a lot of parting shots after they were let go. So something was going on. Now, many people believe that it was a poison to the clubhouse. I know someone who worked pretty close to the clubhouse, and there were a lot of politics, both player politics and politics. Brandon Nemo was a big Trump fan. I was told that he had a bit of a disagreement with Francisco Lindor's wife in the family room. I don't know if Alonso, what he slanted toward, or Diaz or McNeil. I do know that Lindor's wife wanted to be included on Mamdani's team. So you could kind of see where that's going. I've also heard that Francisco Lindor is a prima donna. Nice guy, but a prima donna. I don't know what to make of that. I think all players are prima donnas when you're making $30 million a year. But David Stearns worked on the margins a couple of years ago, signed Severino, signed reclamation projects, didn't want to hand out big money because I think he was looking to put his stamp on this club. He hadn't drafted a lot of the players. That wasn't his roster. He inherited all that. I think he was hoping that they would play well, not embarrass themselves in 23. And what happened was or 24, they totally overachieved. So when you get to within a game or two of the World Series and you take the Dodgers to whatever it was, 5 games, and you played them actually better than the Yankees ended up playing them in the World Series, you look at that. How do you break the team down at that point? There'd be a mutiny. So the rebuild or retool was stalled for a year. Last year, they didn't do well. He had his chance now. He let Alonso go. I think he blamed Alonso. Alonso's errant throw cost Kodai Senga the season pretty much. Senga was having a good as year as DeGrom was having when DeGrom got hurt a couple of years back. He had an ERA in the ones. Okay, he was overperforming. Alonso with an errant throw because Alonso can't throw when he was trying to lead him to the bag when Senga was covering, and Senga hurt his leg and was out for the year. I think Stearns always blamed Alonso for that. He didn't think that a first baseman that was right-handed and power hitter and not a prototypical athlete type body would break down a lot quicker. And he just was not going to give Pete Alonso 5 years. But the Mets have made quite a few changes. The most recent, Freddie Peralta. Now, they've been very busy over the last 9 or 10 days. And the front office kind of changed the perception, which was seen as a very disappointing offseason just as recently as 3 weeks ago. Now, Stearns has a lot to prove this season. The team they built for 25 turned out to be a huge disappointment. It collapsed late in the season. They had the best record in baseball up until June, despite having an MVP candidate in Soto. Change was always expected here, but it's far different than what the fans would have thought. Now, instead of adding to the core, which got to the NLCS in 24, Stearns blew it up. He sent Brandon Nemo and Jeff McNeil out of town in a pair of trades. He let All-Stars Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso walk in free agency. I think he misread the market with Diaz. Diaz never came back with the final offer from the Dodgers. Look, I think he was ring shopping. He knew the Dodgers were a great chance to go there and win a World Series. The money was very little, marginally more than the Mets had offered. And I think if he would have brought back that offer to the Mets, they probably would have matched it, but he never did, which meant that maybe he was disrespected. The Mets had signed Devin Williams, the ex-Yankee closer, a few days before Diaz left. I think Diaz was insulted by that. He said he wasn't conferred. Stearns never told him. First of all, Stearns doesn't have to tell him anything. You work for Stearns. But he probably, if Stearns would have called and said, listen, you're our guy. We're going to work this out, but I want to build it really good behind you. Might have been. I think that he thought that maybe Stearns did that to play hardball with him, to show him, hey, listen, we have a closer. If you're not going to sign with us, that could have been it. So the first month of the offseason sent a clear message to the fans. Stearns and his team wanted to get younger, players on short-term deals, improve the pitching, and get far better on defense, run prevention. And those plans made sense. But the way the organization went along doing it didn't excite many fans, at least until the last 10 days. Now, they pursued Kyle Tucker, arguably the top player in free agency this season. They quickly responded by boosting their lineup by signing Toronto's all-star, Bo Bichette. Interestingly enough, I think it was 12 hours later or 14 hours later, and there had been no word, no off-season chatter about the Mets being in the Bichette sweepstakes. Then you hear that they had spoken to Bichette a couple of times. You don't know what to believe. Then they followed up by getting a veteran that they wanted in the outfield, and that has been rumored to be coming to the Mets for a couple of years. More defense from the White Sox, Luis Robert Jr. And the momentum continued. These last Wednesday night, they landed their frontline starter, very coveted by many teams, Freddie Peralta, who Stearns had traded for about 9 years later when he was a rookie with Seattle. Hadn't pitched yet. So very rarely will a GM sign the same player twice on different teams. So now the Met offseason looks a lot better, and there's renewed excitement, probably about 26. So you look at the lineup and what it looks like, yeah, it is. Hey, Lee, the only one without a cap. You're right. He's a guy got by committee. He feels that you can replace. He's in the Billy Beane era, just 30 years late. OPS and defense, which has been proven to win. Now, there's going to be a projected new lineup. Okay? They lost their best home run hitter in Alonso. and they moved on from a proven on-base machine, although he hasn't been the same on-base machine since he started hitting for power, and Brandon Nemo, who floated with 400 every year, and now he's about 350 or 360. And they traded a former batting champion, McNeil, who certainly his best days were behind him. But going to Oakland now, I could definitely see him resurrecting a career with no pressure on him. And no Lindor, because I don't think they got along. Now, the players they added give them a better lineup than they had in 25, I think. They still have Lindor and Soto near the top of the order. I don't think Lindor should be leading off, but they know better than I do. Yeah, but yeah, one of the best hitting infielders in the league, Bichette, who's a perennial 290 to 310 hitter. Another proven veteran bat, and Jorge Polanco, who's terrific. Polanco, his output is probably going to mirror Nemo's. Very close. I would think Polanco will be 22 and 80 this year, 260. You may get a little more from Nemo, but Nemo's going to lose some points in his WAR, which is wins above replacement, because of his defense. Where Polanco, playing a new position, he doesn't have enough power to really rate well at first base where they're going to play him, which is interesting because Stearns preached run prevention. Meanwhile, you have Bo Bichette moving to third. He's never played there, and Polanco going to first. He's never played there. And Carson Bench, arguably their top minor league talent, will be starting the season probably in left. Now, they're going to hope for bounce-back seasons from Marcus Semien and Mark Vientos. Very possible. Marcus Semien, since 23, has been about a 4-WAR player. This guy, I think in 23, was third in the MVP voting and was terrific. He's not quite what he was, and he's getting older. He's about 35. Still a terrific defensive player. Won the Gold Glove last year. So with defense, you're getting better. And also, Nemo had a no-trade clause in his contract, and for 5 seasons. You took on a little money early on in this contract with Semien, but you're only committed to him for 3 seasons. And I think the Mets feel a Marcus Semien with a limited no trade, you could probably get out of this contract in a year or 2. But they had a great second baseman in the minor leagues, Williams. Jet Williams was no longer with them. So he's not really holding anybody back. So Semien's pretty safe at second base. And there's no doubt his metrics defensively haven't taken a step back at all. It would be the bat. But I fully expect Semien to be a 3.5 WAR player, 4 WAR player, 4 games above replacement because of the defense. Now, McNeil is very versatile. Do I think that Marcus Semien will grade out better than McNeil? Probably not. I think McNeil, his overall numbers will probably be a little better. But the flexibility of getting out of the contract and not being married to McNeil, who has slowed down a great deal. And he's not going to be a DH for you because you're going to have Soto probably in 3 years as a DH. So what are you going to do with Nemo when you can't dump him and he's making 20-something million a year? Now, the players they added, give them a better lineup. Okay, certainly. Luis Robert Jr. was talked about as an MVP as shortly as 3 years before. And he's feast or famine, but the thing about him is his defense grades out top 5 defensively in center field. He has speed, and his exit velo, he swings when he makes contact. It's one of the best in the league. So his bat speed hasn't slowed up. So there's no apparent reason other than the fact that he's not mechanically really to the point where he can replicate results. Last July and August, he had a great stretch where he hit about 340. I have a feeling that was before the trade deadline. I think he turned it on hoping to get traded, but I don't think he was happy in Chicago. So what do we see now? Improving the defense was the major goal. Now, there are concerns about Bichette and Polanco. Generally speaking, if you played short, you can go to third. Look at David Wright, who graded out as a terrible third baseman. His first year ended up winning a couple of Gold Gloves. It's the angle on the ball. Bichette doesn't have great range, but I think he'll probably be okay there. Another proven bat, Polanco. They're hoping for a season to replicate last year. If he goes 23 and 85, hits 260, I think they'd be very happy with it. Now, the defense is better. It's unproven at two positions, first and third. But I think Bichette will grade out better than Mark Vientos did, even never having played third. And Polanco's a good athlete, and I think Stearns just feels Polanco is a really terrific athlete because of his soft hands, should be able to scoop. Alonso was great at that, but we'll see. The major goal was the improving defense this year. But you added an elite second baseman, which you will turn a lot more in the terms of double plays, which it's a big difference. So Bench is upside and left as well. So if you look at the defense, Bench right now is a better left fielder than Nemo. So the lineup, you have Lindor at short and Bo Bichette at third, Soto and right, Simeon at second, Polanco at first. Vientos probably DHing, Luis Robert in center, Francisco Alvarez catching, and Bench in left field. The rotation, a frontline starter was the goal. A big-time arm who could stop losing streaks, something they didn't happen to have last August and September. But they have Freddie Peralta, and he also pushes every starter down. So it makes them above average against who they're going to pitch against. Now, Nolan McLean looked like a superstar during his short stint. He was terrific. There's no guarantee he can do that again. But if he's a number 2 or number 3 starter, he looks like a strong starter in that spot. David Peterson is better fit at a number 2 or 3. He performed great the first half, and I have a feeling he just got tired. Minaya is solid in the back of the rotation. It could be great if he gets back to where he was in 24. Clay Holmes was impressive. He had a top 10 ERA. He had an ERA of about 3.5, converting from reliever to a starter. That was a great sign by David Stearns that no one really gives him credit for. But he was clearly exhausted by the end of the year. Now, some people feel that Jonah Tong can be better than McLean. I don't know how anyone could have looked better than McLean last year. But you have Holmes and Tong. There could be options also to bolster the bullpen. They could bolster the bullpen if the Mets go 6 or 7 deep. The problem with you don't want to bring starters into the bullpen because then it takes time to ramp them up again and stretch them out. It takes a month, 4 starts. Now, Freddie Peralta, Nolan McLean, David Peterson, Kodai Senga is the wild card. Great upside with Senga. I could see if the Mets try to get one more reliever, Senga would probably be traded. A massive upside for Senga. Senga pitches like a number 1. The problem is when he pitches, he's always hurt. Sean Manaea, Clay Combs, and Jonah Tong. So the Mets have probably the deepest starting pitching in the major leagues, but the quality is the quality there. After Freddie Peralta and a fairly unproven Nolan McLean, no. Everyone else is a number 4 or 5 starter. If David Peterson can be your number 3 or 4, then you're doing okay. So how would you grade them? A month ago, fans were beside themselves. but they signed Devin Williams, Luke Weaver for the bullpen. Devin Williams, his under the hood stats were terrific. He had a great stretch after getting acclimated to the Yankees, and all the peripherals show that he is still very, very good. And he seemed to figure it out. If you remember Edwin Diaz's first year as a Met, Williams was no worse. Diaz was a lot worse than Williams his first year in New York. People were ready to ride him out. You would have drove him to the airport. So I think the bullpen looks okay. You have AJ Minter, probably won't be ready for opening day. You have Brooks Raley. Those are two good lefties. Raley was terrific. And you have a bunch of guys that you just don't know. There are concerns. You don't know about the defense on the corners. Can Robert Jr.? Well, if he's sitting down at the end of the lineup, here's a guy that hit 38 homers 3 years ago, and his bat speed is exactly the same as it was 3 years ago. He changed his stance and is more upright, and he had that good season last year. That stretch. Last year, the Mets, their center field position, they had about a 640 OPS, and I think 7 home runs out of the center fielders. Robert, picked the last 2 years, the worst year, totally beats them. If you get 15 and 60 out of him with 25 stolen bases, if you could hit 240 with the defense sitting at the end of your lineup, it's not going to hurt you. So the problem is Peralta could be a rental. They gave up Jet Williams, and they gave up Brandon Sprout, 2 of their top 10 prospects. But, prospect hugging is all fine and good. But why do you develop these players? To eventually help your team one way or another by moving them for a more established player, filling a need. So they've improved their defense in a major way. They have themselves a Gold Glover in center field. Taylor was Gold Glove quality, but just couldn't hit. 2 straight years, he just couldn't hit. And even in his 2 off years, Robert, who's only 28, he rakes against lefties, against righties. He rakes against them. So we'll see what happens. Against lefties, I'm sorry. He rakes against them. So they've improved their defense. I think the locker room was a mess last year. This season isn't a home run, but it looks better than it did 2 weeks ago. I'd give them a B. I would have given it an A if they signed him. It becomes an A if they end up signing Freddie Peralta and they don't lose him after 1 year and gave up, Sprout and Williams. But you look at this roster, and there are a lot of fringe guys that you don't know. You have Huasca Razaban, who's 36 years of age now. And he was useful in the bullpen, but certainly not in high leverage spots. They picked up Luis Garcia, a sinker baller, slurve, changeup guy that still throws 98, and was pretty successful last year. They lost a couple of guys, Lovelady, Hagenman, Reed Garrett, Tommy John. But like I said, Minter, Tobias Myers was acquired in the Freddie Peralta deal. This is a guy who threw 5 scoreless against the Mets in that series against Milwaukee when Alonso hit the big home run off Devin Williams. Funny thing is, when they do a thank you to Alonso on the big screen when they come in to play the Mets, one of his biggest moments was hitting a home run against Devin Williams. Do you show that on the scoreboard when Devin Williams is sitting in your dugout now? Interesting. Uh, they have some really good relievers that had arm problems. Daniel Nunez was terrific. Um, they have Christian Scott coming back from Tommy John, a starter, and they're pretty high on him. I think Luke Weaver will be good, and Devin Williams. They're both 32 and 31 respectively. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But like Lee said, I think in committee, I think he just wants to be stronger in committee. Stearns doesn't care about the name recognition. He doesn't care about that. Francisco Alvarez he's 24 now, so Alvarez is either going to do it or not. This is a make or break season for Alvarez. I'm just afraid that Alvarez becomes Travis Darno. You send him somewhere and he becomes an all-star. Luis Torrens, 29-year-old backup. That was a steal from the Yankees when they got him a couple of years ago. Now, the infield, Brett Beatty is going to be your Jeff McNeil now. Beatty thought last month he was a starting third baseman. You're not sitting Bichette. Beatty now, I could see him playing some left field, and I could see him possibly platooning a bit with Benj when a real tough lefty comes in. Beatty has hit well against lefties. You have Ronnie Mauricio still on the team. He's 24. Never came back quite. He wasn't the same player after ACL surgery last year. It seems like he was tentative, making cuts, and that was his game speed. So we'll see what happens. I don't expect him to be on the team. I think the Mets will make it. There's too many infielders. I think that they're setting the outfield. You know, Tyrone Taylor is where he should be now, your fourth outfielder. So it's going to be an interesting season. I think that the Mets have some work to do still. They do, Mitch. Well, Justin Turner was one of them. Yeah, Teresa, our man Dom's new store. Not open yet. I'll give you guys the all the information when it opens up. But look, Stearns did what Stearns had to do. Lee's right. He's not looking for outright saves. He's looking for whatever works. Yes, Lee, he likes versatility. David Stearns is a guy that likes athleticism. And that hurt Alonso a lot. Generally speaking, first basemen in their 30s don't transition well. If you're a lefty first baseman, you get a lot more respect for some reason, probably because you face 75% of the year you're facing righties. But yeah, he put a torch to it. And if you're rating him for how he put the torch to it, he did a very good job. But I do think that Cohen spoke to him after they lost out when Tucker left and didn't go with the Mets. And I think Cohen said, look, we got to sign somebody here. Do what you got to do, but make it happen. And 12 or 14 hours later, they signed Bichette. Now, they did offer $50 million per year to Hunter. Hunter is the kind of guy that David Stearns likes. A big war guy, great athlete. That's what I think. That is in the mode. That fits the mold of a David Stearns player. He's in the top 6 or 7 in WAR every year. 5, 5.5. Simeon played with Polanco. And Simeon was a 7 WAR the year that they won the World Series a couple of years ago. Simeon was brilliant. And they also say that Simeon is a good clubhouse guy. Now, I do know through my baseball guy that Corey Seager and Simeon had a big problem. They didn't get along. And I just wonder about this Met clubhouse. I certainly think that for political reasons, some things were changed up. I didn't totally believe it until I heard that Lindor's wife wanted to be on Mamdani's team. Then it made more sense to me. But look, I think Lindor's probably a very nice guy. He's a young guy. He has his political beliefs. I don't think they should be brought into the clubhouse. I think it happens too much now because we're very polarizing guys in government. But you should be there to play baseball. Look, the Oakland A's hated each other, most of those guys. Reggie Jackson wouldn't say a good word about Thurman Munson until he died. You don't have to like each other. There were times when Brendan Nemo wanted to get all the guys together to go out to dinner with the wives and stuff. They wouldn't do it. I think Nemo was also a little hurt by Francisco Lindor possibly being named team captain when Nemo had been the oldest in service there. I think that was a bit of it. And I think that they thought Nemo was signed. His contract was for an overzealous, positive defensive center fielder, not a defensively challenged left fielder. Nemo was making center fielders money. And he's very stiff out there. He can't play the outfield anymore. Nemo is a negative player. Let me see if I can get some stats for you here. Okay. Let me get this for you. WAR wins above replacement, and then you have a stat that gives you your percentage of how good you are compared to other players. The league average is 100. For example, I think Soto was about 150 last year. Now, basically what wins above replacement, it's a projection for each player and each team. It has external factors, obviously. Now, the Mets' current total WAR is 46.6. And it's only it's fourth behind the Dodgers, Braves, and Yankees. So the Mets have a 7.2 WAR, which means their roster is %46 pretty much better than an average roster. The Phillies are at 45.3, and the Nationals and Marlins were at 27. Now, it's no surprise with the Mets WAR. I'll tell you why. They excel at shortstop. Lindor, his WAR his expected analytics is probably 25 to 30% better than any other shortstop in the league. Left field, right field, and relief pitching has them in the top 6. They were at the bottom in center field last year, and they were the third worst in the majors last year. And the starting pitching was at the bottom. But Fangraphs, which does a lot of statistical analysis, looks at the Mets as a pretty well-rounded team. They're not too top-heavy. Others variable, but there's some vulnerability. But if you look at specific players that are predicted, Juan Soto is predicted to have a 6 WAR, Lindor 5.5. Now the WAR is above replacement at your position. Okay. Now Alonso, I think, was about a 4 WAR, but he always got hurt because of defense. Alonso would have been a 6 or a 7 WAR guy. Now Soto's defense is terrible, and he was still a 6 WAR guy. If he had the defense of a Luis Robert, he'd probably be a 10 WAR player, 10 games above replacement. I think Judge is about 10. Alvarez is a positive WAR. Mark Vientos because of the hitting. Vientos is another guy who, if he could field, imagine what his WAR would be. Senga was a 2.5. Minaya was a 2. But they're just projections, you know. You don't know what's going to be. But I'm just looking at Fangraphs. It's an interesting stat. Okay, so the 25 WAR. Freddie Peralta was a 3.6, which I'm surprised, but that's because he only goes 5 or 6 innings. And his projected WAR here is 2.6. Luis Robert, 1.3. Bo Bichette, 4.3. That's about it. Luis Garcia, pretty much pretty even. Tobias Myers, you know, half a game above replacement. David Peterson was a 3, and he had a terrible second half. So what do I think will happen with this team? Well, if I had to give you an approximation, I'll give you what I think. And you could hold me to it. Lindor, let's say 28 homers, 93 RBIs, 265 average. He's regressed a bit in the field. He's getting a little older now. Negligible, but he certainly has regressed a bit. Soto. Let's put Soto at 36 homers, 109 RBIs, 285. Bichette. Guys playing for a contract. Let's put Bichette at 24, 106, and 305. Simeon. Let's give Simeon 15 homers, 67 RBIs, 238. Polanco. Let's give Polanco 20 homers, 80 RBIs, 259. Beatty. I think he'll get 500 at bats, and I think you'll see 21 homers, 71 RBIs, 255. Alvarez. Let's go 21 homers, 73 RBIs, 255. Robert. Let's go 17 homers, 60 RBIs, 242. Could be off a lot, though, with Robert, because he certainly has the highest floor ceiling. His floor is low. But his ceiling, you know, I think Robert could lose his job by June, or he could have 20 homers in June. You don't know which one you're getting. I would guess he's never going to get back to that 38 homer MVP type guy. But I don't know, new approach, new hitting coach, I don't know, 20 and 70 with that top flight defense. I think you have a good shot. And the pitching, I think you'll get 16 and 8 out of Peralta. I think the ERA will be a little over 2.8 now. It'll probably be 3.2. I think McLean will have a hiccup. 3.4 ERA. Nowadays, under 3 is an elite starter, number 1 guy. And under 3.6 is a number 2 guy. Freddie Peralta is not a true ace, because a true ace to me gives you 200 innings. He'll fall into 175. He nibbles too much sometimes, but he's one of the few pitchers that strikes out 200 for the last 3 years, 200 a season. And he's a battler, supposed to be a really good guy. That's what you want in the clubhouse. Isn't it amazing? You have to hope for good guys in the clubhouse, and you'll sacrifice some of the stats as long as the person's a good guy. Scary. I look at the competitors. Atlanta now for a couple of years have been on a downswing. Who knows what's going to happen with them? Philly is getting old. Their outfield's weak. Philly's outfield was one of the worst in the league last year. They moved on from Castellanos. Marsh, I think, is a platoon player now, but he's going to be the left fielder. And they have a rookie coming up to play center. But they still have Schwarber and Harper. And that's, 80 homers and 220 RBIs between both of them, 230. They signed JT Realmuto to a 3-year contract soon as Bichette went to the Mets, because Bichette was rumored to go to Philly. They thought they had it locked up. And they were very disappointed. And in fact, you listen to Philly. I listen to a lot of the Locked On broadcasts where they have a representative, a broadcast for every team. And the Philly guys, it's a good listen. They're actually pretty good. And they were just, the fans were very, very distraught. They pretty much penciled Bichette in. They thought he was coming. Mets came out of nowhere. Now, can you imagine the Mets stealing the guy you want? Bichette would have helped that lineup a lot. But they're getting old. And as soon as they lost Bichette, they ran and signed Realmuto, who they were going back and forth with. Realmuto, a catcher to me is top OPS. I would OPS. Soto probably about 930. Oh, yeah, Lee. Yeah, Lindor will probably be about 780 to 800. If I had to go down the lineup now, Lindor, let's say 789. Soto, 920. Bichette, 900. Simeon, 725. Polanco, 760. Beatty, about 770. Alvarez, 760. 720 for Robert. But yeah, the Mets have at least 3 guys that are going to break it. I think Lindor might fall a bit short under 800, but Soto will definitely be, and Bichette will be over 800. And then a couple of guys teetering. Let's see, last year. Now, OPS plus is the percentage of you are better than the average player. 100 is the average. So let's look here. Okay. Juan Soto's OPS was 921 last year. So I think he'll be 940 this year. Alonso was 871. Lindor was 812. I think Lindor could take a bit of a step back. That's why I put him at 789. So I shorted Soto. Soto will be 940. Lindor, I think he'll be a shade under 800. Bichette, I'll have to look at what his was. Nemo was 760. 750 is okay. Brett Beatty was 750. Alvarez was 786. It's a good number. Alvarez didn't have a great year. Let me see. Now, just to show you, Cal Raleigh had 60 homers at a 948 OPS. Judge had 1145. Nick Kurtz from the Athletics had 1,000. George Springer had a great year. 959, George Springer. Cody Bellinger was at 814. I thought Bichette was better. What was Bichette's? I would have swore that Bichette was. Polanco was 821. Polanco in a rough hitting park hit 26 homers, knocked in 78 runs. He only struck out 82 times. Played 138 games. So another 24 games, you got to figure him for another 5 homers and 12 RBIs. So you put that there at 31 and 90. 265 he hit. I'm looking for I'm shocked. I thought that Bichette, unless I missed him. Oh, here it is. Oh, okay. Bichette was 840. Bichette missed 23 games. So 23 games is about 5 homers and 13 RBIs. So you're looking at 23 and 105. He struck out under 100 times. If you notice, there's a lot of strikeouts that'll be missing from this team next year. Nemo struck out a lot. Just to give you a look here. Yes, Byron Buxton, 878. Springer, I thought he was shot. So you'll see, the Mets are going to have some guys that can hit this year. Polanco was excellent. Excellent. And I think that Lindor might fall under 8 now. And that's because he's so streaky. He's going to flirt with 30 homers, 30 RBIs. He'll be within 30 stolen bases. He'll be between 2 and 3 again. I think if Lindor was hitting second or third, he'd probably be 30 and 110. And basically your number 4 hitter is your second leadoff hitter. But Bichette, I expect a monster year out of Bichette. I would not be surprised Oh, first of all, I think Bichette will be an all-star. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bichette hit 320 this year. He's a 300 hitter. He's a legitimate 300 hitter. So look what Stearns is, just to show you. And this is definitely one of the things that bothered Stearns. Just striking out with less than 2 out. Now, Soto struck out 137 times, which was a lot for him last year. Brandon Nimmo struck out 141 times. Vientos 115 times in 120 games. I'll tell you someone who's not signed yet. Starling Marte. You know, Marte had a 745 OPS. He was 7 out of 9 stolen bases. And he hit about 360 against lefties. He just can't play the field anymore. But let's see. Here it is. Now you look at the starting rotation. Peterson was 9-6 with a 4.22 ERA. In the second half of the season, I think his ERA was about 6. So when he got to about 133 innings or so, he was shot. He hit an inning. Walks are high. He struck out 150, but his walks are too high. He walks 4.5 a game. Clay Holmes, his walks are high as well. Kodai Senga still had a 3.02 ERA in 22 starts. His walks are way too much, about 5 a game. His strikeouts are 1 an inning. He couldn't, that ghost pitch, he couldn't get over. They were laying off it last year because he couldn't get anything else over. Tyler McGill always shows you a world of talent, always disappoints you. Still had an ERA under 4 last year. And he struck out 89 guys in 68 innings. Sean Manaea, that should have been his spring training the first 3 months of the season, 2 months. He just never got it together, had a 5.5 ERA. Still a lot of strikeouts and terrific command. He only walked 12 guys. Brazoban, 3.57 ERA. He walks a lot of guys too. But Nolan McLean, 48 innings, 34 hits. He walked 3 per 9, struck out about 10 per 9, had a 1.04 whip, which was excellent. And this is a rookie. You know, starting 8 games. Brooks Raley, 2.45 ERA. Another excellent year for Raley. Jonah Tong, you saw glimpses in 18 innings. He gave up 24 hits because his fastball he couldn't locate. Still struck out 22 guys with that vertical on his fastball. So it should be interesting this year. Vegas has them at 89.5. I think the Mets, if all goes right, could win 93 games. If it doesn't, 84, 85. I certainly think that you're going to add, if the Mets went 95 and 67, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Yes, he does a lot. Yeah, BJ. He reminds you a lot of DeGrom. Yeah, Lee, he was much better his first or second year. Yeah, Stearns, he wasn't so sleepy the last 2 weeks. But I think Cohen got in his ear, certainly. I think it bothered Cohen, the embarrassment. Cohen's wife went off X and all that. These guys watch. They watch. But Marte was great. He was a great fielder and some still has a great arm. He just can't get to anything anymore. He's had 2 hamstring operations, bad knee. He's 36. But no, he was a great player in his day. You look at some of the years that Marte had. I didn't know Marte lost his wife a few years back. I think the Mets will end up signing Marte. They Soto loves him. Marte's still a very, very good hitter. He still mashes against lefties. He always did. You look at his years. In 21, he had 310, 292 and 22, 295 and 19, 311 and 16. His best year was Pirates in 2019, 23 homers, 82 RBIs, 295 average, 31 doubles, 6. I always thought he'd have more triples. Very fast. Now, his on-base percentage was always about 335, 345. But his OPS, 830, 815. Over his last 2 years, 715, 745, 269, 270 average. He's lost his speed. In his best year, he stole 47 bases in 16. And he never got caught. Well, he got caught a lot. Got caught 12. Then he stole 47 in 2021. It was a good year for him. Problem with him was he was always injured too. Very rarely did you get Marte for a full season. And his fielding was, he's a good fielder. Last year, his major league career was 992. But his fielding percentage in the 99, 96, 94%. He had 17 assists in 2016. He had 11 and 18 with the Pirates. And what happens is the stats go down because people stop running on you. That's why a lot of people look, oh my God, he's losing his arm. No one runs on him anymore. They're not going to run on you. So you're not going to get all those assists. Marte can be a DH against lefties, yeah. I think Marte, and on a Sunday afternoon, when you've won the first 2 games of the series, you could put him in left. Won't kill you. I wouldn't put him in right anymore. I'd put him in left. A Sunday afternoon, mid-August, you want to give your guys off and you're off the next day. You could play him in left. I don't think it would. No, BJ. No, Steve Cohen doesn't like embarrassment, and he was getting railed. Yeah, Mitch, 95 wins. I think they'll win. Last year was an aberration. The locker room was poison last year. You had Soto, who had a terrific year. Lindor did his thing. Everyone got hurt. You have to remember, Senga missed 10 starts. If Senga starts 28 games, you make the playoffs. You would have had one more win. You finished with the same record as the Reds. You lost because of the head-to-head. They had the same record. You mean to tell me that they wouldn't have had one more win if he pitched 7 more games? Absolutely. They're going to miss Diaz, but there is no guarantee. Diaz is also going to be 32. There's no guarantee that he's going to, relievers lose it. And off every contract year, he's had a brilliant year. And then he is followed with a not so good year. Possibly, BJ. Very possible. I think they're annoyed too. They lost a lot of players. But they've been doing that. Look, they traded Mookie Betts. They traded the other guy to San Diego. That looks like a good trade now. That's a guy the Mets could get if they wanted to take that contract off San Diego's hands. Yeah, the Red Sox, they made that early deal for the pitcher. I heard an interesting story. You're going to love this story because, like I told you, let me see here. Okay. In 2021, Bryce Harper was hit in the face by the Cardinals pitcher Genesis Cabrera with a 97-mile-an-hour fastball in the 6th inning on a Wednesday. Later in the day, he posted on Instagram 97 to the face suite, CAT scans and all that. Harper called Cabrera the next day and said Cabrera was shaken up. And he said, look, that's baseball, man. It happens. I know you didn't do it on purpose and all that. St. Louis has an organization, not quite a Rotary Club, but something like that. Do you know that Bryce Harper got Man of the Year from the St. Louis, that club, for the way he handled that with class? That's a true story. And I thought that was odd. Thought it was a weird story, but he got Man of the Year. Harper's been great. Bryce Harper's stats. He came up, they knew he'd be great, and he was. He's a Hall of Famer. I like to see over off a 162 game average. This is Bryce Harper's 162 game average. His average WAR is 4.9 per year. His average 33 homers, 95 RBIs, 280 batting average. He averages 36 doubles, 2 triples. Strikes out averages about 150, which for a power hitter, it's okay. His OPS is 905. And he's played short, he's played the outfield, he's played first. Soto, his 162 game average, just to compare the players, 36, 103, 282 average. 29 doubles, 2 triples. OPS plus 160. He's 60% better than your average major league hitter. On base percentage, 409. Last year, 43 and 105, 38 steals. Walked 127 times, just about right. Struck out a little more than usual, and his batting average is about 20 points less, but that's because he had a terrible first 2 months of the season. Oh, his on-base percentage was 396 last year. It's generally from 405, 401, 408. If it's not for those 2 months, he's at 415. Slugging percentage was at 525. His OPS plus in 2020 was 217. His on-base percentage was 1185 that year. He had 351 that year. Let's see, Bichette. Bo Bichette. His 162 game average is 24 homers, 95 RBIs, 41 doubles, 2 triples, 294 batting average, 806 OPS. OPS plus 121, 21% better. I thought it would be higher, actually. That's because of his defense. He's led the league in hits a couple of times. Always in the MVP voting. Here's some of the guys that the Mets have acquired. Jorge Polanco. 23 homers, 85 RBIs, 263 average. His OPS plus is 112. Last year he was 34% better, and that was his highest OPS of his career. In the year that he went 33 and 98, he only had an 826. That's interesting. 125, I'm sorry. That year, though, we had 35 doubles. Every other year he has 16, 18, so he just went off. He had 30 doubles last year. Hit 265 last year, which was also the best in 4 years, his batting average. They did some stat cast on him. He wasn't pulling the ball as much last year. He's a dead left field hitter. I'm sorry, Simeon is the dead. Marcus Simeon was unbelievable. Simeon, 25 and 80, 253, OPS 756 lifetime. So he's a little short on that. And as a great fielder, the extra bases are there. He only had 16 doubles last year. He's generally a 30 to 40 guy. Last year, he missed 35 games, and he went 15 and 62. So you could add another 6 homers and 20 RBIs. He would have been 21 and 80. 24 doubles. And defensively, he's brilliant. So we'll see where that goes. I had forgotten. He came up with the White Sox a long time ago, probably 15 years ago. I remember when he played for Oakland. He was okay with Oakland. He had that big year in 2019 with Oakland. He had 33 homers and 21. He had 45 and 102. 7 WAR. He's an average 4.9 WAR player, which is terrific. So it should be an interesting season. Really, BJ? Yeah, Soto's great. The Mets should have won 113 games that year, Mitch. They had a tough 2 weeks. They were resting everybody. Oh, they were tremendous. So, yeah, I think we'll get 93 wins. I think Philly is going to suffer this year. I think Philly is going to be last year's Braves. It wouldn't surprise me if Phillies won 83 games. It wouldn't surprise me if Wheeler didn't come back from that thoracic outlet, come back the same. I think they're a little short in the outfield. I think terrible defensive outfield. I think that'll show. Real Muto was not getting any younger. But, the catcher is involved in every play of the game. And when you have a great pitching staff, Real Muto, when you play 120 games, you're valuable to a team. And I guess they feel that they have no one else, so they might as well sign him. But we'll see what happens. But it should be interesting. I hope you all have a great night. Once again, Rip 'em Sports. Get ready for that grand opening probably within a month or so, 2 months. I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted. Congratulations, my friend Dom. And I will talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.